Hello and welcome to the Paris Fintech Forum Communities Programme. I'm Elliot Gotkin. I'm a journalist and, with Laurent Nisri, co-host of this exclusive video interview series produced with the support of Solaris Bank, Rise and BPI France. Now, it started out life in 2014 with a plan to take the pain and cost out of sending and receiving remittances. But as Nium grew, it expanded to serve the needs of SMEs, financial institutions, enterprises, and even other payment service providers. The company's co-founder and CEO is Prajit Nanu, who joins me now. Great to see you, Prajit. How are things over there in Singapore?
Thanks, Elliot. Thanks for having me. A big thanks to Lohan as well. Singapore has been a very safe place. So I think from that perspective, it's managed COVID extremely well. You can go out, you can have a meal in a restaurant, go to the park with your family, etc. Clearly, safeguarding rules are there around wearing a mask. The vaccination program's pretty much started. So we've been lucky from that perspective. Small, isolated, well taken care by the government. But I think now that now the safety part of it is gone. Now it's all about boosting the economy. So now Singapore government is working really hard to figure out how to ensure that people don't lose jobs, how to put stimulus back in the economy to get really the SME side back to growing again.
And being a company based in Singapore, tell me more about Nium, what it is you do, and how you serve, obviously, financial and business customers in where you are and also around the world.
Yeah. So if you really look at the global financial infrastructure, right, it's very broken, right? So if you want to send a payment into Brazil, collect money into India, or issue a virtual card in New Zealand, you're looking at different systems, regulatory aspects, different players, different local laws, right? So what Nium does is Nium actually provides you a single API to be able to do anything in financial services fairly seamlessly. So you can call it embedded finance, you can call it banking as a service, you can call it various names. But what we do is we actually make the world a bit more flatter, right? So Thomas Friedman came up with this book, World is Flat. I think we've just taken that and said that any country, any payment process, you want to collect money, disburse money, issue a virtual card, everything done through a single API, a single contract, etc. Right? So if you'll ask me in closer groups, I say that we want to be the Android for financial services, right? Because Android came in and really changed the way handset manufacturers could scale in various markets. So that's what Nium is doing. So deploy Nium and you can build any kind of financial products in any kind of markets.
And who are you competing with?
I don't think we look at people as competition, right? I think the market's like super hot right now. If you look at various players, everyone is coming to us and saying, "Hey, we've got this large customer set, and how do we really convert that customer set and monetize it, right?" So we recently were speaking to a large app which I had not even heard of. And they said, "Oh, we've got about 100 million users." And I was like, "Oh, wow, like that's incredible." And in some of the markets where they have users, it's fully underbanked. They have users in Brazil, Indonesia, etc. And this is a very prominent Android app. So if you think about it, anyone who has a large customer set is now thinking about embedded finance and things like that. So we actually don't worry about competition. It's about solving that specific use case for the customer and really adding value to the customer. So we've had this core mantra since day one that if you focus on the customer, you'll always do well. If you focus on competition, you're just trying to copy paste what they do, and you may not realize that, hey, listen, for my customers, they may not work.
I'm fascinated by the idea of you as this global business and the way that you have this overview of money kind of being used, being spent, being sent around the world. You must have had a pretty good, perhaps even early warning signal about the pandemic. When was it that you kind of realized that this wasn't going to be like another SARS or another localized outbreak, and it was going to be something that was really serious and required you and many of your customers to take action?
I think we saw this in April last year. Interestingly, March was an incredible month for any payment provider because even if you did remittance, so imagine we are the plug for so many players globally, right? So it could be a bank, it could be a PSP, it could be various other brands who are doing remittance, and everything flows through us in multiple countries. And we saw March was an upswing because a lot of people were like, we don't know what's going to happen. And certainly, what we saw in April was a complete change, where March was a complete upswing, and April it didn't taper down, it just crashed down. And it took about a couple of months from there. But being like this whole embedded finance story, which is that remittance is only a part of what we do and not the whole of it, we could see our volumes on the e-gaming and the social media as well as e-commerce volumes just shooting up. So it was an interesting mix where we're being happy on one side, where we're seeing volumes just scale, like ridiculous scale, right? We've seen some of the players grow 2-3x in months, and those were numbers they were doing in 6 months and 12 months. And at the same point of time, we could see remittance volumes kind of drop. It's only back in June and July where things became stabilized and remittance again started creeping up and it's a behavioral mindset as well, because when COVID hit, everyone went into lockdown and no one knew how bad this is going to be. So, generally, if you think about people who need to send money, they can't go step out of the house. That's one. And if you're a white collar person and thinking, you're saying that, hey, let me not send any further money. Let me just hold on to the money because I don't know, maybe I'll lose my job here, which I'll need the money for, and things like that. So we saw that a lot of behavioral changes during that period. So it was June or July when things came back to normal.
So I guess it obviously pays to be diversified in terms of your client
Yeah,
base. I
exactly.
mean, overall,
Yeah.
can you say, it was good for business. I obviously it was a tragedy in terms of people's lives and health around the world, but for Nium as a company, was it overall it gave you a boost?
Yeah, I think fantastic boost, to be honest. I really unfortunate about so many people who lost their lives, livelihoods, and I just still think that we will hit a recessionary trend, not now in 24 months or 30 months, because there is a lot of impact of COVID which is going to play out in the long term. But we grew 3x on revenue. And a lot of trends which we've been observing and playing around with just really rapidly accelerated, right? I've been speaking to so many different banks, I've been speaking to so many different operators, etc. We are going live with one of largest financial services brand who was completely offline, right? I can't name the brand because we haven't publicly announced it yet, but they were the first brand you see as soon as you enter an airport or a new country. And that whole offline business of there, which was 90% of the business, is completely gone. Right now, we've spent the last 7-8 months to get that offline huge brand to turn around and become digital, right? And I think these are things which we see more and more. So a lot of rapid acceleration of digitization when we talk about cashless economy. The amount of work which banks have done over the last 12 months is also incredible. So I think we are headed in the right direction, and COVID's accelerated a lot of these positive trends.
Okay. I want to talk a bit more about you now, Prajit. Now, you graduated from the University of Mumbai, and then you seem to have taken a relatively conventional corporate route. How hard was it to kind of leave that stability and security of what I imagine was a pretty well-paid job, stable job, and then going off on your own, founding Instagram, which grew into becoming Nium?
I think the biggest tough decision for any corporate person to leave his cushy corporate life and become a founder is that SMS he gets every month, which is your salary has been credited, right? I think that SMS has led to a lot of people not being able to really think about moving it. I was in a way I always wanted to be a founder. My father ran a business himself, non-tech though, but he ran a business. So I've seen from childhood about being able to do a lot of things himself, running a concept, building it in multiple markets and things like that. So it was always interesting for me. When now I meet young founders, the first question I ask them, how many domains do you have? Even today, I have over 40 domains. So over the years, I would have had great ideas, great concepts, but never took them to life. And suddenly, this whole thing happened where I had a personal issue of moving money, and I realized, oh, this is like an absolute big market. So when I was doing the tick box in my head, right, I always wanted to go back into an industry which had a massive problem statement. So when I looked at remittance at that point of time with Instagram, it was $600 billion of market, right? So it was a huge market. So I said, oh, that makes a lot of sense. Then I saw the fact that the players are fragmented, lack of digitalization, and so the opportunities really made sense for me, and it was compelling enough to do it. The first 12 months are a bit tough, because you're used to you're like I
No
made a
more
lot of mistakes.
SMSs.
No more SMSs. I keep telling people that I've made a lot of mistakes as a founder. When I start up again, which I will, whenever I move out of Nium, I will make new mistakes. I hopefully won't make the same mistakes. But the mistakes you've made are incredible when you're a first-time founder. From how do you structure a deal, how do you take venture capital investment, how do you present yourself. Some of my funny jokes used to be the fact that few startup events I went to, I used to wear a suit and go, and all the startup guys thought that I was the VC, and they said, "Hey, are you the VC? Are you giving us a check?" I said, "No, no, I'm like you. I'm also here for a check." So it's been an incredible change. It's not an easy change. You go through mindsets, you go through so many. I don't know how the young guys do it. Like I had my wife to always and friends to always go back with and talk to them. And I had the experience which I bought. I had like over 12, 13 years of experience which I can jump in. I just admire young guys, 23, 24, who are building businesses, scaling businesses. I'm like, how do you guys do it? Like, you don't even know what to do, but you're doing it well.
I guess on the plus side, few people at that age would have responsibilities, mortgages, families, and the like. So if everything goes pear-shaped, they can always dust themselves off and start again.
Correct.
Well, look, Prajit, don't go away, Prajit, because we're going to take a very quick break, after which we're going to continue our conversation with Prajit Nanu, co-founder and CEO of Nium. Welcome back. Now, don't forget, if you're not already a full member of our community, everything you need to join can be found at www.parisfintechforum.com. And now, Prajit, I've just got a few more questions for you. So let's talk a little bit more in general about the fintech ecosystem. We've been speaking with founders in this video series from all the major fintech hubs. You're in Singapore. Tell me about the pros and cons of running a global fintech from there versus, I don't know, say London or New York.
Yeah, I think time zone is a big issue. If you want to do anything on the East Coast in the US, it's a massive pain because trying to find a time is so difficult. West Coast, later part of the day. So I think time zone wise is a bit difficult to if you look at it. So 10% of our business is Latin America. All right. So from that perspective, we're very, very global as a business. We have licensed, regulated in about 35 plus markets. We've got customers now in 5 different continents and things like that. So running from Singapore, if you say personal life-wise, it's pretty painful. You have calls in the morning, you have calls at night, etc. From a hub perspective, Singapore is a phenomenal place, right? Because it's one of the best places to build a startup. Because of the fact that government is extremely supportive. When the whole COVID hit, the regulator actually provided grants for fintechs to really survive. So there was a phase where we saw the fact that the government came in with grants where if you're doing any technology-enabled things, they were actually giving you grants. So I know for a fact that a lot of young startups and what happened in the as soon as the COVID hit is that all investors basically just took a step back. They said, "Hey, let's not talk about any new investments." And I think it was March when COVID hit, and till May or June they just disappeared, right? So that when they disappeared, actually the Singapore regulator stepped in and they actually supported a lot of young startups with a bit of cash to kind of really support that through. So I think that was incredibly helpful as well when you think about it.
And I guess having a baby and getting calls at all hours of the day, the two kind of, have a bit of synergy, at least for you. Now, I know that, Nium intends to be, or perhaps it already is, a leader in banking as a service, part of that revolution, call it embedded finance, if you will. Presumably it also works both ways, though, because big tech can also begin to provide more competition if it's, able to provide similar services to the ones that you're providing.
Right.
We've been talking about the Amazonification, if you like, of finance for a number of years now. Is it
Right.
now here? Is this a reality? Is this something that someone like Nium should be afraid of?
I think if you look at it, we provide a platform or an infrastructure, right? Our infrastructure is agnostic whether you're a two people startup or one of the big techs, right? Like what we provide is a cover for you to be able to build various different products in various different markets seamlessly and efficiently, right? And my favorite example to this is, say you start, Elliot, you start a startup and it's growing and you put it on AWS cloud and you're in 3 years later you're just killing it. You're doing amazingly well. Does that mean that you stop your AWS cloud setup and set up a data center and put servers in? That's the old way of doing things, right? No one does that anymore. So even when the businesses grow, we don't see people saying that, oh, now let me strip you out and kind of figure this out. So think of us as that's why I call us as like the Android for financial services, or think of us as the Microsoft Office, which keeps everything plugged around in all markets which you go to, and you can manage everything around it, right? So we are the software layer and the service layer. So we don't really believe the fact that a big tech coming in can change everything from scratch. It's not easy. Regulatory nightmares, right? A license in Indonesia has different impediments on onboarding a customer versus Singapore versus the UK versus the US, right? US still doesn't have any kind of two-factor authentication to access your bank account. Now, if somebody like me who's grown up in Asia, it's scary. Like if somebody hacks my username password, he can actually remove money from my account. Like wow, like this is 2021, right? So things like that. So I don't think it's just going to be a playing field. You're going to see proliferation of financial services to various sectors and segments. Today, a person in Brazil or Philippines who's not able to access financial services will be able to do it on a smartphone. And I think that's the vision which we are trying to play to.
Okay. Well, unfortunately, we're out of time, Prajit. I'm sure we could extend this conversation much longer if we had it, but unfortunately, we don't. So I just want to thank Prajit Nanu, co-founder and CEO of Nium, for joining me today. Thank you very much, and wish you the best of luck for 2021.
Thanks, Elliot. You have a good one too. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Well, I'll be back next week with another big name from the world of finance and technology. We hope you'll join us again then. In the meantime, you can keep up to date with all the exclusive interviews and content from the Paris Fintech Forum Communities Program via www.parisfintechforum.com. You take care. Bye-bye.